I think as Christians, it's really easy, isn't it, to just assume that everyone knows the same things that we do, that everyone thinks the same things that we find interesting are really interesting. And in many ways, that is true. I think all of this information about the quiet revival, or whatever you want to call it, is showing us that people are interested in gospel. There is something that is drawing them in, which is really exciting for us if we're speaking at events or services, because it means that people want to listen to us. But the flip side of that is they will only keep listening to us if the gospel is presented as being relevant for them. There's been a lot of research on this recently. It was an American organization who I can't remember the name of, but I will try and hunt down for after this. He showed about 30% of people who have come to church services will drift out, and they'll say it's because they didn't think it was relevant. So, what are the connecting points that we have that help people at Easter to see it as exciting and as life-bringing as we do? I think the gospel, I can't remember who said this, is a many-faceted diamond. It looks different from every angle that we look at it, but all of those angles are true and all of those angles are good. And not everyone is going to connect to it in the same way. And we're all made different, and that's the beauty of God's creation, isn't it? And even in this Zoom room, we're going to have different ways that Jesus has spoken to us. And so I'm going to put up the whiteboard really briefly and hope this works because I've never used a Zoom whiteboard before. Um, so let's see if this works. And I hope everyone's allowed to draw on this, but I thought it would be nice if we all shared the thing that we love most about Easter and the things that draw us to Jesus. I'll give us a couple of minutes to do that. You can write whatever you want as long as it's not rude, because we are being recorded. Um, but what do you love most about Jesus? What do you love most about Easter? And if you can't write, yeah, someone's put you can add text, which is easier. Or if you're struggling with the whiteboard at all, you can just pop it in the chat as well. This is very exciting. My first whiteboard experience is going well. I'm glad. And already there is such a range of things in there. Power, he's risen, love, life-giving resurrection, hope, new life, proof of the resurrection. Oh, sorry, I moved someone's thing by accident. I'm trying to navigate my way around this. Death is not the end, absolutely. No more death. Sunrise, life, love. It's amazing, isn't it? You can keep writing on there. I won't go back to that, but it's such a range of things, and we already get to see, even in a room full of Christians, the different things that have pulled us into the gospel, no matter what our background is. And but what about the rest of the world? And what do they want to know about the gospel? And do they even know what they want to know? And we did some research at Passion for Life in the summer, and we asked people what they would say is missing from their lives. And we were really struck by some of the results. A third of adults said that their life was missing purpose. A quarter said that they had no freedom. About a fifth said they were missing security. And 20% said love, meaning, and hope. Some of those words that have appeared on our little whiteboard. But only 3% of that same group of people said that they were missing God from their lives. So there's a gap, isn't there, between what people want and what they really, really need. And our job as evangelists, and I am calling all of us evangelists, is to connect those dots for people, to help people see that Jesus does not just meet their felt needs in a therapeutic sense, but our real deep spiritual needs. Because Jesus does bring us hope and fulfillment and purpose. These things are real, true benefits of the gospel that we do experience. But our deepest needs as human beings is to be in a relationship with the God who made us. And Easter is a great time. where people might already be open to coming to church or a craft event or whatever else it is to show them that need. And just before we jump into it, I just want to say that there is a difference between connecting with people emotionally and manipulation. And as Jenny has said, we need to really be careful not to become peddlers of the gospel, to be deceptive or exploitative, to try and get some kind of power or to try and get a reaction out of people. We do need to leave space for people to reject the gospel, to make their own decisions. And as hard as that is for us, that is still the gospel at work. But when we are being safe and direct and respectful and honest, when we're being empathetic and kind, we can still connect with people in an emotional sense. And the gospel is an emotional thing, isn't it? I'm sure for all of us, there are parts of the gospel that leave us very, very moved. And it's okay to talk about that and to connect with people over it. We just need to be careful about how we do it. But for Christians, we get to know that Easter is fundamentally about hope. That was over and over again on our whiteboard, wasn't it? Hope. It's a story of death to life, both for Jesus and for us, for darkness being turned into light, for hopelessness being turned into hope. It's a real celebration of that day where Jesus defeated sin and death, where he rose triumphant over the grave, and the kingdom of God became victorious over evil. We have a certain hope that changes absolutely everything for us. But if you don't know the gospel, and if you haven't grown up in a church, and we need to remember that we are in the post-gospel generation, people don't know their Bibles. What does any of that really mean? So we need to present it to people in a way that connects to those things that they do know that they are searching for. And I want to say that there are three ways that Easter immediately speaks into our felt needs. And these are three angles or facets of that diamond that connects Jesus to them. And the first is Jesus, the man, who was betrayed, who suffered, who was humiliated. It's everything that leads up to the cross. Being on trial, having his friends walk away, Jesus who went through the worst of human suffering. It connects with our humanity, our real weakness. Jesus understands all of that. His best friends left him. He understands fear and loneliness. We see him weeping in the Garden of Gethsemane. We see him alone and in pain. It really connects to all our deep, dark fears, the things that really do make us human. And we also see Jesus, our great, brilliant God, dying brutally in the cruelest way possible. Jesus, who knew what was coming for him, who could have climbed right down from that cross and just smited all his torturers, but instead asked his Father to forgive them. The connection is love, isn't it? It's real intimacy. Jesus, who went to an awful death in our place because he loves us. It's John 3:16 and 17. The God who stepped down became man for you and for me and for all of our friends too. And finally, there is Jesus, the roaring lion, who rose from that grave on Easter Sunday, who was walking around, talking, holding his friends in his arms, ate food in front of them. And that really connects to all of it, doesn't it? To a certain hope, to death being defeated, security in life, trusting in the greatest power of all and knowing it's kind. Jesus, who gives us meaning, gives us freedom, who defeated death so that we don't have to fear it, so we can live confidently. And Peter writes about this in the first of his books. He says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade." Because ultimately, it is the resurrection that brings us new life, that brings us living hope and an eternal inheritance. And that might sound all well and good for you and me, but how do we actually go about telling people this and keeping them interested? And I think really it comes down to knowing who your audience is, because not every hook is going to work for every listener. And not every connection point is going to connect every listener. We need to know who they are, what their deepest fears are, what their longing is for. And we need to be able to show them that Jesus fulfills that longing or defeats that fear. And that does mean getting to know people. And if all of our friends are Christians, we're going to struggle to know what it is that people out in the world are looking for. So if you have non-Christian friends, family, ask them. I've had some great conversations with friends over the years where I've just point blank said, I'm writing a talk about hope and purpose. What do you think on it? And had some great chats as a result, but also really helpful for talk writing. And I'm going to pitch three potential audiences to you. And no, flag me down if I'm talking over time at all. But I'd like to, yeah, flag three kind of slightly stereotyped audiences that you might be able to speak to at some point and what they might be looking for. And the first one is my little stereotyped group of middle class mums. These people might be looking for security and their identity in their family, in their workplaces, in their house. But what happens when those things disappear? When their children leave home, marriages break down, retirement approaches, we start to think, who am I? And where is my security? But as Christians, we know that Jesus offers us security in the certainty of his resurrection. He gives us a new identity as his children, and he meets our really deep longing to feel seen and appreciated. He dies for each one of us, wanting us to have a life defined by freedom and by joy. And then our second group, that I'm again going to really stereotype, is a mixed gender group of working class adults. These people might be facing rejection from the world, hopelessness in job searches and deprivation. And Jesus came into a world that rejected him. He faced every kind of brutality and rejection. He spent time with real people, with sinners, not the establishment, and in fact was killed by them. Jesus rose to free us from sin, from death, and from addiction. And Jesus gives life meaning and hope. And my third stereotyped group is liberal university students. These people might be afraid of being rejected by their friends for having the wrong opinion. They might be longing for security and acceptance, for freedom. The future feels really uncertain. There's nothing we can put our hope in. Politicians let us down and serve themselves. It's easy to become cynical, but the one that who never lets us down is Jesus. His death gives us freedom from the real problem in the world, which is not political parties or types of people, but ourselves, our sin and our greed. And Jesus defeats it and takes our shame away. But ultimately, why do you love Easter? What makes your heart sing with joy? Because that is the best thing that you could use to talk about Easter. And don't be afraid to share your story because human beings connect to one another through stories. And it will help you from going to being someone who's talking at them to someone who's talking with them, a real human being who understands. I know in my life, I've faced real deep periods of depression, and Easter really speaks into that for me. It's a light that carries me when I'm weak and frail and I have no strength of my own. I don't need to worry about the things that get me down because Jesus is there, stronger than I could ever imagine being. And he loves me not because I'm good, but because I'm his. I love telling people that because it makes me really happy. It's the greatest thing that has ever happened to me in all my life. And it makes me want to tell people about it. And I think that's the best way of connecting to people, of giving them hooks in a talk, is to tell them what you love about it, because it will come out. The more that you love something, the better you talk. And so if you struggle at all to find the great joy of Easter, just go straight back to those Gospels and read it again and see yourself in the story, and it will come out. But ultimately, when you're looking for hooks, just think about who you're speaking to. And if you know specific people who might be in the room with you, don't be afraid to use them as gently and as non-specifically as you can, to come up with concepts of what these fears and longings might be and how you might address them. And if you don't know anyone in the room, you can make up some characters and speak to them. What do they really want? And how does our great, wonderful Jesus meet them there? And we can just go beyond telling people what they think they want to hear into telling them what they really need. And if the gospel is that many faceted diamond, what aspect do your listeners need to hear the most? If you've been given a passage, what are the connection points there to those needs? So go back to those words that you wrote at the beginning of this session in your own time and just think about them. Because Easter is so beautiful, isn't it? And don't be afraid to share that beauty with our friends and with our guests.